Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to address the, thank you, Mr. President. You all standing up. We're here today to discuss a very serious issue to law enforcement in the United States, the crime bill. The crime bill was drafted with the input of law enforcement and the Law Enforcement Steering Committee over 6 years ago. This is an important bill for law enforcement and for the community and for the Congress of the United States. They need to stand up, to speak out in unison with us, telling the criminal element enough is enough. The assault weapons ban must remain in this legislation. It's a non-negotiable item. It's off the table, as it is a concern to law enforcement and the deaths that we see on the streets today. The President of the United States, President Clinton, had stood beside law enforcement, initially saying that he had asked for 100,000 law enforcement officers. And through negotiations and through the conference committee, he was successful in succeeding in increasing that from the 50,000 proposed to another 100,000 of which he had initially proposed, to hire the law enforcement officers to enforce the laws throughout this country. More law enforcement also on the streets will make a difference in the terms in fighting crime. The constructions of prisons are important, and the prevention programs. It's a balanced way to fight crime, and that's what this crime bill is all about, prevention of crime. We in law enforcement know that if we build prisons, we can fill those prisons. It's getting back to the grassroots in this country and doing something about the problem before it becomes a problem where we spend $22,000 a year housing criminals. It's prevention. The prevention programs in this bill are good. They've been tried and tested, and the President knows that they have succeeded in some areas of the country and will succeed throughout this country if we only give it a chance. It's with pleasure today, though, I must move on and introduce to you Steve Pisano. Steve, would you step forward, please?
Thank you. Last year, my wife Jody was brutally killed by a gunman using 2 assault weapons in an office building in downtown San Francisco. Our daughter Megan only got to know her mother for 10 months of her life. That's indeed a senseless tragedy. The Republicans say that the crime bill has too much prevention and not enough punishment. Murders like this could have been prevented. The killer had no prior record. His first crime was his last crime, and then he killed himself. He left 8 dead and 6 wounded. In 1991, if Congress had passed an assault weapons ban, this terrible tragedy would have been prevented. What is being prevented now is that the Republican leadership, along with the National Rifle Association, is preventing the crime bill from reaching the floor of the House. I've been a Republican for 19 years, and frankly, I am totally disappointed in my party, especially the leadership of my party. Bill Clinton is our president. Needless to say, well, I'm sorry. I'm working with our president to make sure that the crime bill gets to the House floor for a vote and includes an assault weapon ban. With 3/4 of the entire country in support of an assault weapon ban, how could this type of legislation be blocked? If the American people want it, why can't they get it? The fact is, this bill did not pass because of a procedural rule, which in itself is a crime. Americans deserve safer streets. I don't want to see any 10-month-old little girls putting dirt on their mother's grave. The Republicans say the current crime bill is filled with pork. The biggest pork barrel in Washington is the NRA's war chest. The NRA wants one thing. They want to preserve the billion-dollar gun industry, and that's why they don't want an assault weapon ban to go forward. Fact is, the NRA doesn't give a damn that my wife Jody is dead. Fact is, the NRA doesn't give a damn that my daughter Megan will grow up never knowing her mother. Megan is growing up. Last week she asked me, "Daddy, I want to see Mommy." This is the type of senseless punishment that's going on in America. I'd like to explain to Megan that what happened to Mommy won't happen to other mommies not in this great country of ours. It's not the crime bill that's being held hostage, it's the American people. I urge you to call your congressman and express your outrage. Pass the crime bill. Stop this procedural nonsense. Every day our government waits means more people will die. Partisanship and the interests of the NRA should never come before the safety of ordinary people like you and me. For Jody, Megan, and I, it's too late. Don't wait until it's too late for you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you a person who has also endured some senseless punishment, Janice Payne.
Hi, my name is Janice Payne. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. On April the 29th, as a class project, my son James wrote a letter to the president asking him to stop the killing in the city. He said, I think that somebody might kill me. I'm asking you nicely to stop it. I know you could, so please do it. I know you could. Then, 9 days later, my son's life was taken away. May 8th, Mother's Day. My son never talked to me about that how afraid he was of the violence in our city. Just like James, there are other innocent children out there who are afraid of the violence. Maybe if everyone pulled together and helped the president get the crime bill passed, we as a community could pull together and do something about the senseless killing of our children. Maybe the parents of innocent children that were murdered senselessly could get together and try to do something about the violence around us. I'm not letting my son die in vain. There's a song that has been written in the name of James that should be released by mid-October. There are singers such as Shemaine Novels donating their time and talents towards in the name of James. In the song, one of the verses is, we wish the world would change in the name of James. No child should die this way in the name of James. Don't take away our children, our childhood, just because you're up to no good. Let the children play for goodness sake. Don't take their dreams away in the name of James. My last note on the violence that surrounds us in that is that, as parents, we should pull together and help save our children's lives. Thank you. I would now like to introduce you, Marc Klaas.
I'm Marc Klaas. It's too late for my daughter, Polly. However, it's not too late for your children or the 65 victims of violent crime that will die every day, or the 288 women who will be raped every day, or the 700 people who will be the victims of aggravated assault every day between now and the time the crime bill becomes law. Unlike the politicians who are debating this issue, I am not running for an office. I am here to do the right thing. I am here because I demand, and the American people demand, that our government live up to its most fundamental duty, which is the protection of its citizens. Any government that cannot protect the physical security of its citizens is an ineffective government. We, the American people, are being held hostage by partisan politics and special interest groups. We deserve better than this. I don't want special interests on either side to influence this vitally important crime bill. The fear of crime is the most important issue facing America today. We deserve to feel protected in our homes and on our streets. The fear of crime makes innocent citizens feel like prisoners in their own homes. Let us remove that fear. Women and children must be protected from the horror of rape and molestation. Innocent citizens must be safeguarded from the fear of murder and violent assault. Violent criminals must get what they deserve, long sentences and truth in sentencing. One of the many necessary items in the crime bill is a well-constructed three-strikes law that targets repeat violent felons. A three-strikes law that sends a clear message. You do the crime and spend the rest of your miserable, destructive life in prison, where you can no longer wreak havoc on innocent people. We have left our safety up to the politicians for too long. They are up for re-election in less than 2 months. They will be asking us to return them to Washington, D.C. if their total disregard for the safety of innocent citizens is an example of the type of representation we can expect from them, then our decision on Election Day should be quite clear. This issue is not about money. It's about life and death. There is no more time to lose, I know, because our lives and the lives of our children can change in the blink of an eye. Many thousands of us are affected by violent crime every day. Please, call or write your member of Congress now. Demand that they wage war against violent crime in America now. Demand that they vote for the crime bill now. When you tuck your children into bed and kiss them goodnight, do it with the knowledge that you have instructed your congressperson to support the crime bill now. It's too late for Polly, but the rest of the children in this great country can still use your help. Ladies and gentlemen, I've corresponded and spoken with the President on several occasions now, and I've always raised the issue of children and crimes against children, and he's responded with more than just words. He's responded with a good bill. He addressed it many times in the State of the Union address, and I know that having a young daughter himself brings him much closer to this issue. And it is my very great honor and my very great pleasure to introduce the President of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark, Janice, Steve, and Dewey. And to all the rest of you who are here, we have just heard from the real American interests in the crime bill. Last week, the House of Representatives walked away from Marc Klaas and Jody Spano and James Darby and all the law enforcement officials in this country who have worked so very hard for this crime bill. When you walk away from our police officers and from our kids, from our hardworking citizens with their futures before them, or our senior citizens who've given their lives to make this a better country, and you do it on a procedural trick so you can still go back home and pretend that you didn't vote against the crime bill, and you would even have voted for it had it only come to a vote. There's something wrong with the American system of government. And it finds its way into the lives of people that are still around. Polly's sister Annie told me she's still afraid of being kidnapped, so she built an elaborate alarm system in her room with ropes and bells. There's something wrong when James Darby and his classmates who are still living were so afraid of violence that they had to participate in a special program to help them cope with it. And the worst part of their fears is that there's truth behind them. Yes, this is the greatest country in the world and the longest lasting democracy in the world, and none of us would live anywhere else for anything. But we have to face the fact that we have the highest murder rate in the world and that our children are more at risk here than they would be in most other countries and all other advanced countries, because we have simply failed to act with the discipline and determination necessary to preserve democracy's most fundamental obligation, the maintenance of law and order, without which freedom and progress cannot proceed. The crime bill makes 3 strikes and you're out, the law of the land, puts 100,000 police on the street, builds more prisons to lock up serious offenders, takes handguns away from juveniles and bans assault weapons, and provides investments in prevention to give our kids a better start in life, deals more sensibly with the terrible scourge of drugs that are responsible for so many of the crimes we have. These are things which ought to be done. How can the House explain to Marc Klaas why the law that might have saved his daughter's life, it had been enacted years ago, couldn't come up for a vote? How could a politician go to a little child like Megan Spano and explain that, well, they just couldn't figure out a way to bring to a vote a law that would have taken the deadly weapon that killed her mother out of the hands of a deranged person? And how could a member of Congress explain to James Darby's mother why they won't put police on the street who might have allowed little James to complete his last walk home? If Washington had acted 6 years ago, some of these lives might have been saved. If Washington will act this week, a whole lot of lives can still be saved. Last Friday, I met with some police officers in Minnesota. I told them that they had never walked away from us and that Washington should not walk away from them. Well, the parents of this country should have the same pledge, and the children of this country should have the same pledge. You heard Janice say that in James Darby's wonderful letter to me, which I have read over and over and over again since last Mother's Day. He said, I know you could do something about this, and I'm asking you nicely to do it. Well, my fellow Americans, we have asked the Congress nicely long enough. There should be no more excuses, no more tricks, no more delays, and no more discussion about whether this bill is a Democratic bill or a Republican bill or a Clinton bill. I don't know when I will ever be able to get it across to people here that what we do here is not about us. It is about the rest of America. So let's, Congress, hear this. Pass the Darby, Klaas, Spano crime bill and do it now. Thank you. Thank you very much.